Subject for today is the theory of turning. What is the theory of turning? It is the theory about turning your back on your opponent. At this point I'll also say that any questions or comments are most welcome, and I know for some of the more experienced martial artists out there, the idea of turning your back on your opponent is somewhat of an anathema. But bear with me, there is a reasoning behind this. For someone who is just beginning, it is quite possible to be overwhelmed by a very strong and frenzied attack. Someone who is attacking very quickly and is also advancing rapidly while they do it. And that can come to the point where if you're experiencing it yourself, that you're overwhelmed, that suddenly it's just all too much and you can't help yourself, but you turn around, you turn your back on your opponent. It's obviously a bad habit, but I can't say that even an experienced fighter can totally eliminate it. If you ever watch kickboxing or anything like that, even boxing, on television, you'll see some of those fighters in some circumstances will turn their back on their opponents because they're simply overwhelmed by the intensity of their opponent's attack, and it's not a desirable thing. And as you become more experienced, and if you have more control over the situation, you should not need to turn your back on your opponent. You should have other options, but nevertheless, it can happen. So we need to come up with a solution for the problem. And the theory of turning is when you have to make a forced retreat, and it's a forced retreat in respect that you may not even be consciously aware that you want to do it, but it happens. Now you've got to do something about it. So the first thing to do is you need to train your mind to be ready for the occurrence of that situation. So you need to visualize in your mind what you would do if that situation occurred. And I found myself in that position in my younger days, in that I had to think what would happen if that happened to me, because although it hadn't personally happened to me, I'd seen it happening to a lot of people in the gym as we were sparring, and I thought there must be a solution for that problem, because it's a problem that I would myself one day also encounter. And I realised what I needed to do was to do that in a controlled way, so that when I was conscious of myself turning my back on my opponent, that I maintained my stance, that I twisted, but kept that movement in a circle turning around. And this particular technique, as far as I know, is totally my own. I use other techniques from other styles in it, but just this idea of turning your back on your opponent is so foreign to the fighting world that I don't think anyone's really discussed it. But I came up with a method of turning that forced retreat into an advantage. And what I did was first thinking about actually doing it, thinking about that turning motion. You start off with that turning motion, that you have your footwork right, but then you continue the turning motion. And what you can then do is, because your opponent is aware of that, and it changes your opponent's perspective. They believe that they've turned you into a retreating situation. And as I said, this can happen to anyone. There was a famous fight where Bruce Lee fought another martial artist in San Francisco, I believe, for the right to teach Kung Fu to Westerners. And there are many stories about what happened in that fight, arguing one way or the other, but one thing certainly came out of it, that Bruce Lee experienced that problem from the opposite point of view, as the attacker, because as a Wing Chun exponent at the time, his counterattacks were so fast and so frenzied that his opponent momentarily couldn't deal with them, turned his back and then just continued to retreat. Now, with Bruce Lee being such an efficient fighter, well, he managed to follow the opponent, who I think was Wong Man Jack. And in the process, he kept on raining on Wing Chun chain punches to the back of the man's head. And because he was hitting the back of the man's skull, he actually hurt his hands quite a lot. And so that led him to changing his style. It just goes to show that even someone at such a high level of martial arts is capable of turning their back. And this man was obviously good enough in martial arts to think that he could go man to man against Bruce Lee. When you're turned, as I said, start off with your turning motion, which there's no thought to the start of this turning motion, it's just happened to you, but you realise you're turning, so continue turning, but make sure that you got your feet in a stance as you're doing it, and twisting. So start this involuntary technique as it occurs, but then make it a voluntary technique, because it's too late to just turn back on your track. If you turn back on your track, you're already vulnerable to your opponent and you don't know what you're going to hit, but you keep moving. Now then, what are you going to do about it? You keep turning around. Now, I realise that different things could happen in the outcome of this. Now, if your opponent is coming on so close and so strong that you haven't really had time to do much, when you turn your back, you could actually physically collide. He could literally run straight over you. So in these circumstances, I thought what you can do is that you can extend your hand out in either a punch or just with your hand guarded against finger damage. Stick your hand under the opponent's armpits. So that as he's coming on, you turn, but you throw your hand out under his armpit, and as he runs up your arm, because your arm will be sliding under his arm, that brings you into a perfect position to keep going around and perform a shoulder throw. So I unfortunately didn't have a partner available for our demonstration part of the video, but I did try to show you this technique where you just extend your arm out and then turn into a throw. Now, when the distance is just slightly greater, it's too difficult to pull the opponent in for that throw. It could also be that at this stage the opponent is reacting to your change in circumstances again and is starting to pull back when he realises that you're trying to do something. That means you've still got that little bit of extra distance, but you're still very, very close. And in that case, a shoulder throw is perhaps not close enough. You can't pull them into that shoulder throw, because then you're starting to pull yourself backwards. In that circumstance, the beginning of the motion is the same, but instead of a shoulder throw, you can change that to a hip throw, which means rather than going under the armpit, the arm can go around the person's waist, so that you're then throwing over the hip to a hip throw. Now, in some cases, you might have a little bit more distance again, and the momentum of the opponent is such, and you're in such a position that you still want to throw. It could also be that the opponent is somewhat heavy, and you again reacting and starting to pull back, so you can't get into a wrestling match with a much heavier opponent, but you still might have the option of using a leg throw, so further down the body, for just basically tripping him up as he goes past. So it's a hip throw that didn't quite work out, but if you bring your leg down, the leg contacting over the level of the knees will quite effectively reap him for a swoop. Now, when the distance is just slightly more, you do have the option of using the elbow that you're turning around. You can now bring the elbow into play, so that the elbow can strike with the chin, the cheek, the eye level, depending on the alignment of the face, the nose as well. Now, here's where the beauty of the manoeuvre starts to come in, because it is very hard to get precision in these things, and when the opponent has come so close as to be likely to crash into you, the throw option is there, and there's not much you need to do to guide things. You just, or to aim, you can just guide the opponent further. When you've got that little bit more distance, enough space to use an elbow there, that is good as well, because if the opponent pulls back, or that you've whirled around so quickly that the distance is a little bit longer than what you were expecting it to be, from the elbow, the whole outside surface of the arm running all the way up to there is available to give you a continuous variation on the distance from here all the way out to here, so literally a metre away. That gives you a great deal of option, and that spinning backward elbow or spinning fist with a hammer fist or a chop has quite a lot of velocity. So what was initially a failure on your part and something that's put you to a great disadvantage can actually put you into a great advantage, because your opponent suddenly finds themselves running into a literal freight train. Now it is also possible when the distance is increased a little bit more. Again, these increases in distances are a result of either you spinning around so quickly when you've reacted that that the distance hasn't closed quite as much as might be, or that the opponent has actually reacted to the fact that you're now doing something else, because if you do have an opponent that's very, very quick, they may be able to react quickly enough to pull back and reverse a bit to avoid that blow if they see it coming. Because you are spinning anyway, you can throw your entire force into it, and that variation on your arm allows you to adjust for the distance there. But if that is not enough, not all is lost, because you can then still pull in a reverse crescent kick, which is a kick that you can use at reasonably close range, which would also seem to come from nowhere, getting straight in the chin or the side of the face with that, and it is a very telling blow. And if it misses, again you have another option still that you can follow through with a conventional crescent kick off the other foot, which is following behind. So you're maintaining your momentum, that rotary force that you've created with that initial turning. You've found a way to keep using that no matter what the range is, so that you can commit yourself to doing that complete 360-degree turn without any fear of reprisal, because you have so many options to change that depending on the circumstances. It's just a matter of thinking about it first in the cold, clear light of day, so that you can train your mind to be ready to that, just to visualise doing that turning and visualise applying the throw or applying the strike or applying the kick, and you'll find it can all fall in place. And doing a little physical practice of doing that turning, do it slowly, make sure your footwork's right, and just practice that turning and then throwing the strike into it till you get to the point where you can continuously do it. Also good if you've got a medium or long bag that you can use. It's a good way to practice that, where you can vary your distance and keep turning that round and see the results of what you can do. Because as you know, when the bag's swinging around, the distances can vary quite a lot too. So it's a good way to give you that practice of varying your strike distance, and say if the bag swung back too far away to hit, use that crescent kick. If the bag's too close, just grab it and simulate doing a throw. If the bag's at a nice short distance, the elbow. If it's a little bit further out than what you were expecting, you've got that whole outer surface of your arm. So that's a good way to practice that. Alright, well I'll give you a brief demonstration in the field to give you the idea. This is one where you really need to sort of think about it a lot. It's part of the mental attitude of self-defense. Alright. First, ultra close range. looking under the armpit and throwing over the shoulder. It's medium close range, turning, going straight back. A bit longer, turning, and back there. Longer range, turning, leg, turning, leg.